This is the Digital Savage Experience Podcast, hosted by Prokopchuk, bringing you all things digital marketing, tech, business, and motivation. What's stopping you from becoming relentless in all aspects of life? Are you ready to become a digital savage? Let's get into today's episode.
Hey everyone, this is Prokopchuk, and this is the Digital Savage Experience Podcast. Today I have with me Mario Nawfal. He's a founder, CEO, investor, and entrepreneur. Thank you for joining me today.
Pleasure, Roman. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for being on. So tell me a little bit about your journey. How did you go about, getting into founding companies? How did you get passionate about it? Where's kind of your start?
Sure. The way I got started was, I did not know anything about entrepreneurship. I was back at university doing banking and finance. And the path I had in mind is that you study your ass off, you keep studying. And then once you have enough knowledge, you get a job at a bank and then you work your way up, because I wanted to be an investment banker. And that was the vision I had. I did not know what the term entrepreneurship meant. And I was 21 before I started my journey. And I thought, I'm still too young to start making money. And I didn't have much money in the bank. That was in Australia, Melbourne. And then I heard a story about a boy. His name is Farrah Gray. I think it's Farrah, Gray, Gray. He made his first $1 million at 14 years old. And that got my whole mindset changed when I heard his story. That I'm actually not young to make money. I'm actually pretty old at 2021. And I immediately dropped out of university. Second year was doing well, just dropped out. And got a job door knocking. I started knocking on doors from morning till night, non-stop. And then after that, I did cold calling. And I did okay. For my first week starting out, I was making, I don't think I hit six figures run rate. So 5 figures a month. And so I was doing okay. A few $1,000s a week, Australian dollars, which is still a few $1,000s US. But obviously I was working for my money and not the other way around. I didn't have a business. But immediately when I started business, Roman, I had the mentality of following the opportunity. And that's normal for entrepreneurs. I would try many different things. You can call it shiny object syndrome. I kind of had that, but I was wise enough, and I wasn't wise back then, but I'm lucky to have at least had the instinct of doubling down on what works. And that's probably the most important thing in entrepreneurship. When you're trying anything, your audience will probably have a lot of entrepreneurs. When they're starting business, they don't know where to start. Try as many things as you can, like I did. I was door knocking, selling water filters, coffee machines, TV ad spots. Yeah, go figure. Sometimes in the same day, LED lights, I never sold one. But water filters, I sold thousands worth. So I tried everything. And blenders is the one that clicked. And then I tried selling it on eBay. It clicked. I heard that cha-ching sound on my phone in the movies the first time. And then I started doubling down because it's working. And when something works, you start doubling down more and more. And that's the concept of entrepreneurship. You throw pebbles, you try different things. And then when a pebble hits, and that's the example Jim Collins uses in his book, Good to Great, a great book. He throws pebbles. An entrepreneur will try different things. When one hits, something works, someone pays you for your product, for your service, you double down. And I kept doubling down, made 7 figures in my first year at 21 or 22, and then 8 figures by my second year. So that's my first real business. And then kept expanding from there. Until this day, today, right now, I'm launching new businesses. I've got them on the whiteboard here in the apartment in front of me. And they're all pebbles being thrown. And I started recording it as of a few months ago. So late last year, November, December 2018, I started recording my process of launching one of my businesses. In 6 months, it's already at 6 figures run rate. And by the end of the year, I'm certain it'll be 7 figures. And I'm recording the process, and you can watch me go through the same process I did 6 years ago. Just I'm in a much better position now financially, but also my knowledge has improved drastically. So that's my journey. It's essentially been a lot of things being tested, a lot of things failing, and then the ones that work, I double down like crazy, and it's worked time and time again.
No, that's awesome. And I'm sure there's been situations where you felt like quitting in general. What helped you overcome or stay focused?
Situation. I've never, funny enough, I know a lot of people would give you an example of when they felt like quitting. I've recently had examples where I would just turn to my partner or someone, my brother who's very close to me, and just say, man, I'm tired. Actually, I'm not saying it to my brother because he's more tired than me. He works with me. But I went with one of my general managers. I'd say, man, I'm just tired. And that was in the last 2 years because there's just so many issues that happened. I was scammed last year by people very close to me. One of my companies was almost bankrupted. One of my other companies went through a pretty hard time as one of our suppliers breached their agreement and had a patent. So a lot of issues that were unexpected just drove me and everyone to the ground. One thing after the other going wrong. And the way I dealt through this is I never thought to quit because it wasn't an option. Like, quit, what do you mean quit? Quit doing what I love? It doesn't make sense. Like, it's just not an option. Can't imagine myself quitting. But for anyone that's going through a phase like this, the best way to look at it is have a stoic mindset. That's what I do, at least. And there's one book I read time and time again, very short book, whenever I'm going through a really tough period, is The Obstacle is the Way by Ryan Holiday. Because what it does, it puts you in the right mindset to realize that, hey, it's actually not as bad as you think. And that's a cognitive bias. People always over-exaggerate everything. So in terms of emotions, when emotions kick in. So when it feels like the world is coming to an end, just remember it probably isn't. And I've always said that to myself time and time again. And also at the same time, when something seems too good to be true, it probably is. And you've probably heard this before. But so anyone that feels like they're quitting, why do you want to quit? Just ask yourself, what do you mean quit? So I can't relate to anyone that says I want to quit and go back to an employment job. Everyone's in a different situation. I'm talking from a position, Roman, where I've always been an entrepreneur. I've never been employed, maybe a bit being a waiter or KFC back during uni for a bit, but I've never had real employment, full-time employment. And I've always been like this. I don't have a family. I do support a lot of people, but I don't have a family of mine. So I cannot relate with a person that has a wife, has kids, and had an employment, was employed before starting their job. So giving advice to them would be difficult, but I can give advice on being in the right mindset. And that's where having the stoic mindset, reading The Obstacle is the Way, or similar books, get you in a more objective way of looking at the situation. Because to decide on whether to quit or not, it has to be an objective decision, not based on your emotions, like you've just had enough, you're tired. No, if that's why you're quitting, not a good decision. But if you look at everything objectively and say, look, maybe I need to go work part-time while trying to get my business improved. Maybe you do. There's nothing wrong with hedging your risk and having employment on the side if you've got other responsibilities. Not something I would do, but look at it objectively. Be in the right mindset before you make such a decision. I hope that answers the question, Roman. But I just don't want to give advice pretending I know the answer. And then if someone has a family and his income's dried up and he's got an opportunity to make $500, $1,000, $2,000 a week employed while still being able to work part-time on their business, it works for some of the most successful businesses. What's that one? The one that sells glasses. Warby Parker was built that way. They didn't quit their job until they had not only a proof of concept, but incredible revenue, more than a proof of concept. And there's many examples like this where entrepreneurs hedge their risk. So employment is not bad, but it's what you do with the rest of the hours that you have in the day. I was talking to an entrepreneur today. He said to me, I was speaking to him last week, Roman, and 6 days ago. And he was working. And he said, Mario, I'm going to quit my job and focus on this. I'm barely making any money. I'm like, all right. And I gave him some tips on how to build connections, network on social media, build relationships before selling his product, leggings for women. And then he came to me today and he said, Mario, look, I don't know what to do. I talked to my employer. He can give me 30 hours plus I've got that other job, which is, I do about 40 hours a week. I'm like, all right, so weekdays, how much time do you have? He's like, I don't have much time. I go home 10 p.m. I have to wake up 7 a.m. I'm like, all right, you can rest that time you can rest. Throughout the day, he's like, I only have 2 hours between one job and the other. I'm like, all right, that's 2 hours a day, 5 days a week. That's 10 hours. Plus you got the weekend. Work another 10 hours each weekend. That's 30 hours. You've got with your job full time. You still got 30 hours to work on your business. But that means he was telling me this on his day off. He was having a picnic with his wife. I'm like, that means no picnics, no Netflix, but those 30 hours that you have left, work on your business. You got a kid, you got a wife, you got to support them, keep your job, but be productive with those 30 hours that you have left. So that's one way of looking at it. It doesn't have to be binary. Either quit your job and go down the entrepreneurship path, or no entrepreneurship and just have a job. You have both. And there's many successful people that have. I'm not one of them. I went down the entrepreneurship path from the beginning.
No, that's awesome. And I think that advice is situational. It's what's best for your situation and your family or where you're at in life. And just because you do it one way doesn't mean you're going to be less or more successful.
Exactly. And I just don't like giving advice where, there's those people, they get, I think they get a bit cocky, or they just feel like they know the answer, or because they've had success, they feel like they know the answer to everything. Well, it doesn't work that way. You don't know like how much did luck have a role to play in you. I didn't start talking, Roman, on podcasts. I didn't start doing podcasts. I didn't have LinkedIn or Facebook or Instagram till late last year when I was scammed. I knew the importance of personal branding. Why? Because I just didn't feel like I was in the right position. My first business got to 7 figures in year 1, 8 figures in year 2, which is a hell of an achievement. But I still said, I need more knowledge, more experience before I have the audacity to start giving people advice or talking about my story. And then I replicated the story time and time again. I've had 3, this is my 4th 7-figure business I'm building. So 7-figure and then hopefully 8 after that. 8, maybe 9. I haven't had a 9-figure business yet. But I've done this time and time again, Roman, before I start telling people this is maybe something you should do. And to this day, even with that success that I've replicated from nothing, bootstrapped time and time again, I still don't pretend to know the answer for everything, because it is situational. What works in one industry, what works for one person at a certain time, timing is really important, will not work for someone else. A lot of the recent unicorn businesses or successful companies leveraged influencer marketing and Instagram. Does that mean it still works the same way it did before, or is it something else now? Before that, it was AdWords. A lot of successful businesses were built on AdWords, but telling other people AdWords is the way because you built your business purely on AdWords 10 years ago, or wholesale, retail 20 years ago, it doesn't work. It's always different time, different circumstances, and different people around you.
No, I agree. And circumstances and variables are different. And sometimes things align, like you said, like luck. You may have even be in an elevator with someone and that opens up a door. It's just some of these things happen in terms of just a fluke, and others, take time to build. A lot of people give general advice, like you said, but I mean, it's more important, I think, to be genuine, speak about your own experiences, what you've achieved, and basically have somebody take something from that. Exactly.
I think you can talk about your experience. That's what worked for me. And what will work for you could be something completely different. I'd like to talk about 2 things. I like to talk about what worked for me. And I also like to talk about what I've learned for others. I'm learning every day. I listen to podcasts like yours every single day, and I still read books every day. And I'm obsessed with learning. Why? Because I know what there's always something else I can learn from someone else. Doesn't mean I listen to one person. Never listen to one person unless they're extremely self-aware and extremely open-minded, that they can give you advice not based on their own anecdotal experience. They can give you general advice. Those are the people I would love to listen to. But someone who tells you, do this, don't do this, do this, don't do that. I'm not going to name people, but those people you should avoid. There's going to be a lot of successful stories that are similar to this, but many people might have done exactly the same thing and failed following the same strategies. How do you know how many succeeded, how many failed? Just keep that in mind. One thing you can do as an entrepreneur is listen to as many people as you can and then find the similarities between them. So at the moment, a lot of successful businesses, and I've got a list of them, I always like to see what they're doing. One thing I'm seeing that's in common between all of them is an obsession over customers, because it's getting very, very expensive to acquire customers, not like before. And it's going to get even more expensive. So obsessing over the customer and working on the lifetime value of the customer, I think is what will separate the successful versus unsuccessful businesses. And that's what we're focusing on now in my e-commerce businesses. Because let's say one of my businesses sells blenders and juicers, which it does, and it does that in over 30 countries, high-end blenders and juicers. If that's all we sell, and that's where we make our margin, That means every paid ad that we have to make a certain margin to be able to succeed as a business. If we break even or there's zero profit or even a loss, we don't have anything else to sell to those customers. They buy one blender, it lasts them a lifetime, and we have a juicer and that's it. A business that does exactly the same thing as us, but also has another website that sells health products, organic products, or any auxiliary products to the blenders and juicers, they would do better. Why? Because they've got other products they can sell along with the blender. Someone buys a blender, that business could break even on that sale. And that's us now, we're doing that now. We can break even on the sale. Why? Because that customer that's in our database now that has a relationship with us, that trusts us, we can sell them other food products, we can sell them other appliances, we can sell them our aromatherapy Zens product, which is doing really well. So it's leveraging those customer relationships, and our obsession over customers in the last 6 to 12 months has really paid off. So that, for example, is one thing that many successful businesses are talking about. It's part of their success story. And you could learn that because a lot of them have something in common. So that's one way I learned from other businesses and entrepreneurs, trying to find the things in common. It's the same thing with everything, really. Like if you want to follow a certain diet, there's dozens of them out there. What you can do, and I remember someone telling me this a few years ago, he said, if you watch all the diets, you can see some things that are in common. I'll give you an obvious one. Most, if not all of them, say vegetables are good or drinking water is good. I think you can make a conclusion there that vegetables are a good thing because most diets agree on that point. So it's the same thing with entrepreneurship, listening to many people and businesses, successful businesses, and trying to find the things they have in common. And then you talked about luck as well, Roman. Luck plays an incredible role. Anyone listening to this podcast is not deaf. You're lucky. There you go. It's an obvious example. But what you can do as an entrepreneur is keep your eyes out without having shiny object syndrome and try to find those opportunities. So when you find an opportunity, leverage it, capitalize on it, don't ignore it. And that's where execution comes in. So when luck comes, it's the people that execute based on that opportunity that will get an ROI on that luck. And the harder you work, the smarter you work. So it's not about working hard, but working smart, doing the right thing. The more ROI, the higher the return you'll get on the luck that comes across your way.
I agree. And you said finding kind of things in common. I think it's all about finding patterns and things that will come. So if, something is trending and you want to build a business around it, it's important to understand what's happened and what's in common in terms of some of these companies. And it's important for things that work and things that don't work. So, if universally an industry you want to get into, all the people that are players in that industry did a certain thing and it didn't work, it can help you avoid, pitfalls as well.
Exactly. There's a lot of things that you could learn learning from other businesses' failures is really important. Like Warren Buffett says, I learned from, I'm going to paraphrase, but I learned from my mistakes, of course, everyone should, but why learn from my mistakes when I can learn from others' mistakes? So I try to learn from other companies, what they did, what didn't work, so I don't make that mistake myself now as well. So finding patterns of success, but also patterns of failure. And pattern recognition is a very underrated skill to have and to build. So if you've got that skill, it will definitely pay off.
How important do you think for a entrepreneur, a founder, an investor is emotional intelligence?
Wow, man, good question. I don't get asked that a lot. It's something that I've obsessed over. It's so important, actually. It's something I've obsessed over a while ago. Like really obsessed over it, and I've constructed the personality I have today, and that was one of the things I really worked on. Entrepreneurship is hard. It's very difficult to find people that succeeded without going through hell and back. So entrepreneurship is really tough, and if you don't have emotional intelligence, being able to deal with the pressure, it's gonna drown you. And that's in terms of your own emotions, but also emotional intelligence in terms of managing your team. Knowing there's a book called Multipliers. I think that's what it's called. And the book talks about the best way to manage people. And they've studied a lot of successful managers and CEOs. And what they found is the strategy I've been doing, and I've had to optimize it based on the book afterwards, but I was doing before that, and I was happy to hear it in the book a few years ago, is stretching people to a certain level. So working them hard, pushing them. You could do better. expecting more, asking them to deliver the result as much as you can. And then when they reach that point where they're going to break, take 2 steps back and praise the hell out of them. And then they go back a bit relaxed, and then push them again. And then they'll go past that line to a new line. So that's a strategy that Multipliers talks about. I think the book's called Multipliers. I could be wrong. But that's a strategy I like to use. Now, it doesn't work for everyone, and many people will quit. Not many, but some people will quit. If you didn't hire properly, more people will quit. So hiring is key there, and making sure you get the people that can deal with that. And then making sure that the senior people that work by your side, that's what I do, they're able to be pushed further and further. And having emotional intelligence on how to approach them, how to deal with them when they're at breaking point, or they take things emotionally, how to drive them during tough times. It's just so important. For me, it's helped me tremendously connecting to people that I've managed. Even at a young age, I was managing people 3 times my age when I started my business. Talking to clients for, deals at 6 or 7 figure contracts to be signed at my consulting business, IBC. All of it benefits tremendously from having emotional intelligence. So it's something that I truly value in business and in personal life. I think managing your emotions will get you ahead in life tremendously.
Yeah, and I think it's key for a leader, anyone in a leadership role, because they're the ones all of those pressures fall on in terms of decision making that could benefit or shut down a company. So having a level head and thinking clearly is very important in terms of decision making, so it's not a loaded decision that's fueled by emotion.
Yeah, absolutely. And I was asked by my manager once, my general manager in my company, Froothie, and he says, Mario, despite everything, last year was so bad, Roman, like if I tell you everything that went wrong last year, he'd ask me how I didn't break down. But he asked me, how do you wake up every day and you still got that same energy? I never thought of it. When he pointed it out, I realized that it's true. And then I started thinking, how did I get to this stage? And it took a lot of construction. Like, I've got an emotional mother, my father is emotional, but then I got to construct a way to be able to deal with emotions in a really effective way. And it's worked out really well. And there are times where I can't sleep for 4 or 5 hours. And recently, the latest issues we've had, and my brother, who's also the COO, he's a very calm person, Roman. He couldn't sleep for days. He would be breaking down. He had panic attacks at night. Francois, the general manager, last week he woke up freaking out about some agreement he worried that we breached it. Just made up stuff in his mind, in his dream. And now my brother had that panic attack last year, and they started to build the emotional intelligence around it. And I think it makes you tougher. And now that I think about it. So I wasn't that great earlier, and something would go wrong. I feel the world is coming to an end despite my emotional intelligence. But entrepreneurship will build up the emotional intelligence as well. Plus, of course, learning as much as you can. That's where stoicism really helps. But it really helped a lot in those tough times, because the emotions as an entrepreneur are tough. They are tough, and no matter how successful you get, if anything, the more successful you get, potentially depends on how much money you save or how much responsibilities you have, or how empathetic you are. But potentially, like Elon Musk, his story, I was listening to it again yesterday for some reason. And you probably know his story back in 2008 where he almost went bust before Christmas in 2008. And he was days away from both of his companies going under, SpaceX and Tesla. The emotional toll it took on him is insane. And look, he was making more money than I'll probably ever make back in 2008. So yeah, build that emotional intelligence if you want to be a successful entrepreneur.
Businesses and people quit things for a certain reason, but a lot of the times, these industry leading companies, best in class, or just the ones that outlasted and dealt with everything that came at them.
That's a good point. Like when to quit or when to pivot, because there's 2 ways of looking at it. There's the businesses that you probably don't hear in the news about. They're the ones that completely persevere, that continue persevering until they go bust. They stick to their way of doing business. They're like, hey, we got to be patient. Everyone's following these hypes, etc. Keep doing what we're doing. It's going through tough times, and then they had to close their doors. While others, like Amazon, they kept focusing on what they're doing and they succeeded. It's difficult. I'd love to see studies on perseverance versus pivots. I'm sure there are some studies, and I think I read one many years ago. I just can't remember the details. But it's a tricky thing. Like it's more of an art rather than a science. I'm a risk-averse entrepreneur, and not many people know that about me. They think I love taking risks. I hate it. So when to pivot? I pivot when to persevere. Let's go back to that because that's what you're talking about. Look, I'll give you an example. One of my companies, IBC, is in the blockchain space. So you probably know crypto, and as soon as you hear crypto, if you don't know the space, you probably think of Bitcoin. So if you look into it further, it's a technology, not just the crypto, not just the speculations. There's a lot of benefit to it. And you come from Ukraine, and Ukraine has got tremendous talent getting into the blockchain development space. So there was a lot of hype back in 2017, and IBC, I built it to a 7-figure business in 6 months. So bootstrapped, and that was one of the 3 businesses that I've built to the millions, bootstrapped. And so it did really well. And then I knew the hype would not last, and I knew the importance of timing. And that was the same time where I was scammed as well. So I got hit by a scam, and the industry went to shit at the same time. Now, industry going to shit, I expected it, and I was prepared for it. The scam, I was not, and that tremendously hurt me in the business and lost us a lot of money. But we pulled through now, so now we're good, obviously. But back in 2018, throughout the bear market, when things just completely dried up, there were 2 types of businesses. Or you could say even 3. I'm the third one, but I'll tell you about the first 2 that did not do well. The first one are the ones that kept scaling, saying, hey, everyone's is cutting their expenses. Let's keep scaling. And some entrepreneurs talk about this. I think Grant Cardone, once I've heard him say about it, I don't listen to a lot of his work, but I think he's one of the people that says, when and Neil Patel talks about it, you should scale when everyone's cutting costs. That's risky, because how do you know how long the bear market is going to last? How do you know that you'll be surviving? How much cash flow do you have? So that's risky. I did not do that. I did not continue scaling. I thought about it, like, let me scale and let me take market share. We're already the leader in what we do. So I did not scale. Other businesses just completely shut down. Said, hey, advantage of the hype. It's done now. Let's move on to the next thing. I didn't do that. I balanced it. It doesn't have to be one or the other. I didn't scale. I moved my resources to other companies. Other resources I let go of. A lot of them were contractors, without being operating at a loss like other companies. And then when the market started picking up again a few months ago, we're still leaders, and we're in a perfect position to bring back resources, mainly from our other companies, back into IBC and taking advantage of it. So it's a balance between pivoting. So I pivoted my attention to other businesses because IBC was going through a bear market. There isn't much demand, but at the same time, I persevered throughout that period, but in a very calculated way. So that's one way of knowing when to persevere and doing it right in a strategic way. That worked for me.
Yeah, I think that's also situational. A lot of things are situational. And like I said, there's a lot of generalists out there trying to sell courses, masterminds, how I built this company. And you can't, it's very rare that you can replicate those exact scenarios. It's not, you're not doing it in the lab and replicating every variable. So I think it's important, regardless of what your company is, if you're able to pivot, if something's not working, if you're able to recalibrate your efforts and resources into something else, or shuffle it into, another business effort or endeavor, or just quit altogether. That's situational as well.
Exactly. And then anyone listening to this saying, all right, guys, Mario, what the hell do I do? Everything's situational. What about my situation? Well, look at your situation. Man, I'm really bad with names. Jay Abraham, very smart marketer, very, very smart, been around for a long time. And I like listening to his work. And he talks about how he's learned, one of his strengths and what got him to where he is, and charging so much as an advisor. Like, he charges incredible amounts of money, which is crazy. And the reason he does that is because he's worked in so many industries over the decades that he learned so many things. And what he does is he gets something that worked in one industry and then tries it in a completely different industry. So that goes back to the situational. But strategies that work in one area, they could work in another area. So you can learn from other industries. You can learn from success stories of other businesses. But to see if it works, test it. So I look at all these successful strategies. I choose the ones that I think would work best, that I've heard many times over, whether it's a software I want to try, or some new marketing strategy, or the subscription box hype. And then that is like one of many examples. And then test it. See how the market responds. Does it apply to your business? Use logic. Use your, I don't call it intuition, because I like to be more calculated than that. and then see other businesses in your industry as well. Like what made them successful? What are they doing right? What are they doing wrong? Is it worth replicating it and doing better? Or is it worth looking at doing another strategy that could, finding their Achilles heel? I'm thinking about one competitor. One of my competitors, they sell purely in Australia. What they do is they sell purely through home demonstrations, the Tupperware model, or those multi-level marketing companies where you have to go to a house to demonstrate the product. That's the only way they sell it in Australia. That's it. In the US, they sell it on Amazon. The company is called Thermomix. It's a cooking machine that's worth $2,000, massively popular in Australia and Europe. And it's a really good quality product made in Germany. Really high quality, and they've done incredibly well. I said, all right, they're doing really well, but they do home demonstration. If I use the same strategy as them, they got a much bigger budget. They've been doing it for a much longer period of time. If I play their own game, their strength, is that the best way of doing it? Or should I find their weakness and leverage that? So what I did, I'm like, all right, they'll do home deliveries. I'm sure a lot of people don't want, if I want to buy a machine, I don't have time to sit there talking to someone that wants to demonstrate it for me. I want to get something that's so simple to use, I don't even need a demonstration because I don't have time for it. And then my partner could use it. If she wants to cook, I don't cook. So I'm like, all right, that's their weakness. That's their strength. But at the same time, I could leverage it as a weakness. Say, don't waste your time with a home demonstration. And ours is so simple. Buy it online. You don't even need a demonstration. It's so easy to use a one-page manual. So I've taken advantage of their home demonstration as their strength, apparently, quote unquote, as a strength. Said, all right, let's see how we can make that into a weakness. And then I started selling online and make it a simpler product, even though I had less functionality. I said, I'd focus on the percentage of people, the 80-20 rule. 80% of the functions in that kitchen appliance that would apply. So 20% of the functions that would apply to 80% of the consumers. So I focused on the main functions, kept it simple, no need for a demonstration. Buy it online, you're done, money back guarantee. So that's looking at competitors, and instead of just replicating what they do, look at trying to be smarter and find their weaknesses.
No, that's great. And you touched upon the marketing example. It's funny because I do the same thing in marketing. I've worked in a lot of industries, and I take what works and basically try to apply it to an industry that may not be trying it to have kind of that sweet spot. So industries like fitness, things that worked, I've applied to pharma and biotech and life sciences, and then, the e-commerce and other industries as well. So it's funny.
Yeah, exactly. Like with that home demonstrations, I'm like, maybe there's something there though. Let me look into it and see if I can sell another product through home demonstrations. Now, I'm not doing that because I think it's an outdated model, and I'm surprised it worked for them. But let me see if I can do something else through using that same strategy. It does work, and it's not easy to do though, but I think actually it's not hard to do either, because when you listen to podcasts, it's very hard for me to find another person on a podcast that sells blenders and juicers, for example. I've got many other companies, but I'm using that as an example. So if you think about it, you're always learning from other industries, but try to look at industries that you might have never thought of as well. That's what Jay Abraham says, and I probably need to do more of that. Like look at the, I'm looking at a petrol station now from my apartment on the freeway, and it could be a petrol station, or oil, what do you call it in the States? Oil station, petrol station? Gas station.
Gas station.
Yeah, I've been traveling for too long. I keep forgetting the terminology. So a gas station, look at that industry. Maybe you find something interesting that they do. So yeah, and look at other countries as well. Something else that Red Bull is a common example of that. They got the idea of the drink from, I think it was Thailand or some, the people were somewhere in Europe, Northern Europe, I think. They got the idea from Thailand. So you can find strategies in countries like Japan, Korea, China, that are way ahead of the US, or I look at the US as my main market. US, Australia, Western Europe. In many ways, they're far ahead, especially Japan and Korea. So you can look there, and when I have time, when I want to scale or look at new product ideas, I look at those markets. They're incredible.
Yeah, it's a great strategy to have, because obviously it's a global economy. And like you said, there's far advanced economies in technology and products than the United States, even though the United States is, a technologically advanced economy. There's still things that you can take and apply to the US market.
Absolutely. Like for example, we talked about blockchain earlier. Blockchain is If you start paying using that technology, you don't need a credit card anymore. But if you go to China, there's places that don't even accept a credit card, let alone not cash, of course not cash, but credit cards not even accepted. Everything is through the phone. WhatsApp is learning from WeChat in China. So China is really ahead of the rest of the world in some areas. Other areas they're still catching up. But Korea and Japan are incredible. And funny enough, just today, I've been to Korea and Japan a few times, but just today I was talking to my team about scaling one of my businesses into Japan and Korea. I made the decision today. I sent them a voice note a few hours ago. So that's my first venture into those countries. Didn't work out too well. So I'm going to try again, my second try. And the reason I decided to do that is I looked at another competitor that I learned from that have just announced they're launching in Japan. I'm like, you know what? Why haven't I thought of that? My product is like this, very small, inexpensive in terms of FOB, so the price from the factory, first in the world to launch it. So let's get into Japan and Korea. It should be easy to ship. Let's not worry about making a profit. I'll ship it out of my warehouse in Australia or in China or in Taiwan. Probably shipping is going to be high, but I don't care even if I make a loss. Let me test it in the market. Use Shopify, translate the website very quickly, have a CS person, customer service person, that translator that we've used before when I tried to enter the country and failed. And it could work out. And I'll let you know if it does. I'll just ping you. But last time it failed because it was a more expensive product, like a $300-400 product, the blenders and juicers. That was many years ago. And it needed a lot more marketing, convincing for people to spend that much on a product. The current one is a recurring purchase product, no competitors, and very inexpensive. So it should be easier to convince customers to buy it.
Oh, that's awesome. So what's one thing you can leave with the audience in terms of advice, personal or professional?
We've talked about one important point. It's just be careful who you learn from. It's learning in business and in life. Try to learn from people that are not only self-aware, they don't say they're self-aware, but that you actually see them practicing that self-awareness. They see their flaws and their strengths, but also very objective about things. They don't pretend they know the answer to everything. They don't think their way is the right way. And I hope I always stay that way. I always remind myself. I've got a reminder on my Asana project management tool that says, Mario, I can't remember what it says, but you're not as smart as you think you are. Just always remember that. So always learn from others. One of my reminders that I have. And another reminder that I have, I wanted to mention earlier, is always question things. So we were talking about before, questioning different things. Is that the way to do it? That's one of the reminders I have. So without digressing, just be careful who you listen to. But another point that I want to mention that I think not many people mention in business is timing. Bill Gross, I keep talking about this. Bill Gross has a TED speech, Gross, Gross, has a TED speech about the most important thing for a business success. Where there's the idea, the funding, the business plan, the team, and timing. Most important factor based on his research was timing. If you launch YouTube in 1995, it's not going to succeed. He tried it in 1990 something. He tried it because the internet was too slow. But YouTube started as a dating app, but it was at the right time. There was demand for a video hosting company, and they saw that demand, video streaming business, and they capitalized on it because they were there at the right time. So make sure when you're launching a business, it's a whole art. I talk a lot about it in the new launchpad that I'm doing, where I'm training businesses and entrepreneurs to find the right timing. But I talk a lot about it in my videos because I just think it's so valuable. And it's the way I launch all my businesses. If you look at my companies, they're all listed on my website. If you look at my companies, all of them took advantage of either a trend, short or long-term, mainly long-term, and launched at the right time. How do you know it's the right time? You can use Google Trends, SEMrush, but do the pebbles approach. After you see a trend, test it. Throw a few pebbles. Does it 1 hit, 2 hit? Double down like crazy.
No, I agree. Well, I really appreciate you jumping on today and having this conversation. Can you let the audience know how they can find you?
Just on my website, marionawfal.com. Nawfal is N for Nelly, A for Alpha, W for Whiskey, F for Fred, A for Alpha, L for Larry. marionawfal.com. You'll see all the videos and stuff that I have.
Awesome. Thanks again for stopping by.
My pleasure, Roman.
Have you ever thought about starting your own podcast? When I was trying to get this podcast off the ground, I had a lot of questions. How do I record an episode? How do I get my show on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and all the other places people like to listen? How do I make money from my podcast? The answer to every one of these questions is really simple. Anchor. Anchor is a one-stop shop for recording, hosting, and distributing your podcast. Best of all, it's 100% free and ridiculously easy to use. And now, Anchor can match you with great sponsors too, so you can get paid to podcast. Without Anchor, I don't think I would have ever started a podcast. It's so easy to use, and I record most of my episodes from my phone. So if you always wanted to start a podcast, make money doing it, go to anchor.fm/start to join me and the diverse community of podcasters already using Anchor. That's anchor.fm/start. I can't wait to hear your podcast.
This podcast has been brought to you by Nova Zora Digital. Find out how Nova Zora Digital can help your company grow online.